Hello, Contrarians listeners, watchers, and fans all over the world. Here we are for the latest installment of Dual QVR. And that's where Alex and I watch a movie together, but not together. We're going to have a little segment before we start the movie. Then we're going to stop the movie halfway through and reconvene and talk a little bit about what's happening, what we think is going to happen, how we're feeling about it. And then one last segment after the movie's over. We'll just see what's going on. So the movie today is Bones and All, requested by Patron Jamie Russell.
Not
Alex?
Rust and Bone. I
No,
kept
that's a movie that
thinking
we've seen. Did we watch that
yes,
together? Or no, you recommended it, right? You watched it
yeah,
before I did.
that might have even been before the days of the podcast. But there was a couple times during this I kept thinking, are we watching Rust and Bone? Because I couldn't remember the name of the movie. But no, this is Bones and All from last year. This movie's barely a year old. It premiered on September 2nd of 2022 in Venice, starring, of course, Timothy Chalamet of MCU fame.
I mean, hopefully you've watched at least one of the other instances where Alex has made this joke, so you understand that by now he knows he's not in the MCU yet.
Came from a genuine place. The first time I referenced that or talked about that on the podcast, I honestly thought that's how that kid was famous, was MCU movies.
Okay,
And
but now he does have a role. He's played a role in Contrarians history. Do you remember?
not off the top of my head, no.
He's in the latest Little Women. He's not one of the Little Women, but he's one of the little boys that's around the Little Women. He's in love with Saoirse Ronan. He plays a Christian Bale role.
Aren't we all?
The original. Yeah, well, he's no Christian Bale, I can tell you that. I think that might have been your only exposure because you haven't seen Lady Bird, right? You just kind of dislike Lady Bird on principle. And like it's somewhat associated with Noah Baumbach, therefore I must dislike it.
I guess that's probably reaching, but yeah, I mean, there's probably 1,000 movies I'm going to make time to see before I watch Lady Bird. And okay, Call Me by Your Name. That was the one that got all that hype a few years ago.
He might have gotten a nomination over that. I'm not sure.
Dune. Okay, I was wondering what like his thing recently was. And then Don't Look Up. He was in that along with everybody else. But did you ever watch that?
Yeah, it's I liked it overall. It has some big swings that don't work. He
got nominated for Best Picture.
Don't Look Up. Yeah.
Wow.
Leo is great in it.
Well.
I mean, yeah. Timothy Chalamet is like, I already forgotten he was in it. No, his big thing now is Dune. That's, Dune Part 2 is coming out.
No wonder this got a Best Picture nom. You got Leo, Jennifer Lawrence, Meryl Streep, Cate Blanchett. I mean, come on.
It's Jonah Hill.
He's canceled now, I think.
I think that we need to, at this point, we need to make a distinction between canceled and disgraced. Like,
yes.
Canceled means that, can't even be talked about. Disgrace just means that when we talk about you, we can like make a face.
Resigned in disgrace.
Yeah, it's like, dude, come on.
So yeah, Timothy Chalamet. I honestly think the thing I recognize when I see his face the most is when he hosted SNL, because I remember that. For some reason, I remember that being like one of the last whole episodes I watched. Because as has been discussed, I don't think it's very good anymore.
Was he good in SNL?
I think so. There was some skit he did with Pete Davidson where they were like SoundCloud rappers and their music was like terrible, but they thought it was great. It was pretty funny. Bones and All is based on Bones and All by Camille DeAngelis, a novelist. Screenplay by David. Sorry, David, I'm not going to do this right, but Kajganich. He wrote the Suspiria remake. And he also wrote The Invasion, which was a remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers with... was that Nicole Kidman in that?
And Daniel Craig, right?
Yeah, Bond was in it. 07. Blood Creek, True Story, A Bigger Splash, Suspiria, The Terror, and Bones and All are his writing credits per his Wikipedia page.
Well, the director also directed the Suspiria remake, so there's your connection. And then he also directed Call Me by Your Name, which is, like we said, Timothée Chalamet's big. I think that was his big movie, the one that started
coming out.
Attention. Yeah. So
for lack of a better term or phrase, rather.
I mean, that movie.
Luca Guadagnino. How do you say his name?
Guadagnino. I think it's Guadagnino.
Okay.
not an expert, but
Oh, okay. He's Italian.
my Bones and All story, which is basically the extent of what I know about Bones and All, is that a couple of Thanksgivings ago, whenever it was in theater, so just one Thanksgiving ago, my wife and I went to see the Knives Out sequel, Glass Onion,
Balls out.
and yes, and that was Bones and All was playing, and at the theater we ran into a friend of the show, friend of ours, past guest, Eddie Strait. He was working that night, and he was coming out of the Bones and All theater. He had just been there with the ushers, or maybe he was waiting for Bones and All to drop. But he kind of like started talking to us about Bones and All. I had no idea that movie existed, and he was like, "No, yeah, this movie, it's not too bad." And so that's how I know that it's about cannibals, or it has to do with cannibalism.
It's a horror comedy, I think, is romantic horror.
Yeah, I think maybe he said it was like a cannibal love story. And I said,
you
okay,
do.
that sounds like something I might watch someday. And my wife was like, nope, that sounds terrible. So you're watching that on your own. And that's it. Before you knew it, it was out of theaters. So thank you, Jamie, because now I get to fulfill that prophecy. I said I might watch it someday. And here I am about to start Bones and All on Amazon Prime. 2 hours and 10 minutes.
It's got Chloe Sevigny. We'll try not to hold that against it.
I hope she's a cannibal.
Jessica Harper's in it, and I was like, as in the woman from Suspiria, and yep, that's her. So,
all right,
there you go.
Well, 2 hours and 10 minutes. That means that about an hour and 5 minutes, we'll stop the movie. We'll come back. We'll reconvene. We'll see if it's really about cannibals or Eddie was just pulling my chain. Although the name Bones and All, that sounds like it might be about cannibalism.
It's you're communist that doesn't love the Sandlot as much as you should revoke your citizenship for that. But that's, Squint says that in there about the Beast with the guard dog and like all the criminals that he caught. He ate them bone and all.
The Beast ate them. He ate them bone and all.
Well, let's just hope that this is a Sandlot remake then, with Chalamet as, I don't know,
James
one of the
Earl
kids.
Jones. Yeah.
All right. Well, so let's see what happens. I think I'll be okay, Alex. I am 50-50 on you. My prediction is not so much about the movie, but more about you. Because just based on the Luca Guadagnino movie I've seen and the Luca Guadagnino movie I've heard about, which is the Suspiria remake, doesn't sound like your type of filmmaker. I don't know if you're going to have the patience for whatever this guy likes to do. But
as has been well documented, like intentionally, specifically avoided the Suspiria remake just based on things I heard about it. So, and also Tilda Swinton's being in it.
You don't like Chloe Sevigny. You don't like Tilda Swinton.
The Chloe Sevigny thing is kind of just, that was joking more than anything. And Tilda Swinton, honestly, like, Tilda's great, but you can't expect me to forgive a movie like We Need to Talk About Kevin. In this case, though, one of our wonderful patrons put it on her desk, and as everyone knows, I don't watch really too much modern shit. So, modern horror great David Gordon Green acts in this movie, so we'll see what we got from that.
Hey, there you go. That's your in. All right, so we'll be back in an hour and 5 minutes. Cross your fingers that this goes well, and we'll see you very soon.
But you can't spend the night?
Not all night.
Dad!
You didn't. I can't help you anymore. I know it's not your fault. You were born this way.
I smelt you. I didn't know I could do that.
I thought I was the only one. I don't want to hurt anybody.
Famous last words.
All right, we are back. We're halfway through Bones and All. We're through the meat, not the bones yet. I guess we'll get through the bones in the second hour of this movie. But hour and 5 minutes, we paused it. What do you think, Alex? Is there about to be another victim, or?
Oh, definitely. And he deserves it too. He was smoking and chewing gum at the same time. That's like the grossest thing a person can do.
Tasteless.
Man of no class.
So, when you thought that this was a movie about cannibals? Like, is this what you pictured?
I definitely expected some sort of like modern twinge on it. I mean, this is Twilight with a little bit of more artistic paint used. And it's also, look, I don't know. I haven't read the book. The book came out in 2015. That I texted you immediately. That first scene is like, oh, yes, I also have played The Last of Us. Like, it was possibly through no intent of their own, but it definitely, and now that you've seen the show, you know, that's how the game starts in a very similar fashion. And,
I was not expecting it. And I think that's.
oh, dude, yeah, it was. I thought they were going to kiss because
Right.
you know, she was looking at her lustfully, and then
She was smelling her.
I remember when I was a little kid, the town I grew up in, there was like an old woman who fell in the shower. It's like stuck with me for like 20 years or whenever I first heard it. She fell and went to like grab the shower curtain, and her wedding ring ripped the finger and like muscle off, like, so it was just the skeleton there. That's immediately what I thought of here in the first scene of this, when she bites the girl's finger and rips everything but the bone off. I was just like, that's one of the things that I have such like an irrational fear of happening to me, is like catching my finger on something and it rips everything off to the bone. I know there are far worse things that can happen to me, like I can compound fracture my leg and shit, but you know, it's just one of those things of like, that's always stuck with me. So seeing it here, I was like, ugh! Definitely, it achieved its goal of shocking me.
It's a very interesting cold open, and I was asking you if this is what you thought we were in for, because it's not. Like, I thought that, like, and maybe there's no distinction. Maybe I'm just naive about the ways of the world. Like, I think that, you know, there are cannibals in the world, but I don't think that they're necessarily like, you know, supernatural monsters, which is what these guys seem to be, right? They can smell each other,
Well,
and they can smell death. Like, I thought this was gonna be
this
about.
movie's also not very subtle about the
It-
fact that this could be like symbolic.
right, but I thought that I was going to go into a movie about people that happen to like to eat human meat, but not that they were, you know, predators in that sense. Just people that, I don't know, were like robbing graves, or I don't know what I thought, but I
They
definitely
have
didn't
special,
think.
like their special action on like the video game is that they can smell. Like that, if you select one of these characters, you can smell other cannibals from. What's Mark Rylance? He says like a half mile or something.
Yeah, I mean, he had leveled up. He had been around
Sir
for a while.
Mark Rylance, yeah.
Is he a
Oh,
sir?
hmm.
Yeah. Did you go like, oh, Dunkirk? Is that your
Yeah,
Mike
because I just watched
Rylance?
Dunkirk like in the past 2 weeks. So I was like, hey, dignified actor Mark Rylance on all fours in his tidy whities eating a body.
Wiping the blood on his butt. It was...
I don't know if Jamie, if this was in any part the thought process of recommendation, but there is pro wrestling in this movie. Did you see that?
I don't think that was, or maybe, I don't know. He's been listening to the show for a while, so it's possible.
It was
Was it on TV? Was that when they were talking about?
Chalamet's watching it. Robert Fuller, I could see him, and then I think they said Jarrett, as in Jeff Jarrett, and I think they said Keith Eric too. So that would have been mid to late 80s in Memphis television. So that all checks out.
This is probably gonna be really dumb. But was that Giuliani the first time that we see a TV? Like, I think the dad's watching the news.
I think so. It sounded like him for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I know who you're referencing.
He's fallen on hard times recently, so he's almost unrecognizable. But if that was him, you know, he's still had hair and
melting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, the main reason I bring that up is because this movie's based in the mid to late 80s or whatever, and Jeff Jarrett was in the clip they used for the wrestling that they use in this, and I saw Jeff Jarrett wrestle live in Chicago 2 weeks ago. So he's still kicking, he's still at it. All right, so not Joaquin Phoenix, Michael Stuhlbarg.
Stuhlbarg, yeah.
Okay. And then David Gordon Green.
Is that his buddy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was gonna ask you, has he already shown up? Because I don't know what David Gordon Green looks
see
like.
The wheels turning. He's like, all right, Corey. That's what he's thinking in his scene there. Yeah, he's Brad. It's one of his only 2 acting credits.
What's the other one?
The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
That's the Cage movie, right? That I don't like.
That I was about to say, yeah, that's the movie you love. All right, so that scene, like when not Joaquin Phoenix is talking about it all, it was like I was so entranced by that, but it was also the thing where I was like, am I gonna like this or not? Like,
Are you
I will
gonna like the speech or the movie?
the movie.
Uh-huh.
Like, yes, I get it. This could be allegorical for a lot of things. It's not just necessarily they're eating people. But that speech was really, like, that scene was really intense and really good. And, like, you know, we find that he may have killed them if they stuck around. But it's the first hour has definitely gone by much faster than I was expecting because I've been pretty entranced with what's going on. But like, so okay, here's what I've had so far is it's a bunch of questions and very few answers, and it's just kind of like we're following the story of this young girl, and she runs into these other people. You know, it's like a really macabre road trip style movie. When that guy started like explaining it, and you know about like. And then kept talking about bones and all. I was like, let's move it along here. And so my fear is that the second half is going to be answers and just kind of going way further into this shit than it should have. Whereas like this thing, it could just be like kind of controlled chaos in this story of also coming of age and romanticism and whatnot. I was reading kind of a few reviews here on some of the downtimes of it, and I read someone described it as "Let the Right One In" meets Bonnie and Clyde, and I was like, if I had read that before this, I would refuse to have done this movie because that like review just annoys me so much. Just like
just don't read that review. I mean, that's a cool. Like, if I were to pitch that,
that's an elevator pitch. But that's also like whoever wrote that was like.
Oh yeah,
like so overwhelmingly proud of themselves. So yeah, my thoughts so far is I'm really enjoying this. I'm finding it very engaging in a way that's just kind of like here it is. And my fear is that, like I've talked about a lot of times with movies, some of my gripes of modern movies is like the need and desire to just kind of over explain everything and make it so blatant what you're trying to say. If this movie just kind of continues the way it's going and we don't really know more about either of them or why they are the way they are by the end, I could really be on board with that. I mean, we do have another hour and 5 minutes, and that's fairly egregious for a movie like this, but you know, you got to take what you can get. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Where are you checking in halfway through?
It's funny because I hadn't even considered that was a possibility, but yeah, you're right. That is a very real danger that they may end up getting lost in the mythology, which is not. It's funny because it's what I find the most interesting here, but don't necessarily I'm looking for answers. I like what I found the most engaging about this movie so far is just you know what it's like to be this creature, you know, this type of creature, and you know the rules and how it all works. But I don't need them to, you know. You're right to arrive at some sort of answer. It's like, and this is why you are the way you are, or you know, or they reach.
You lived under power lines as a kid, and that's why you're this way.
Yeah, no. I like the idea that, you know, they find information, but overall it's just this kind of road trip. What is the end game? Are we still looking for the mom? I mean, they stopped that, right? Like now they're just traveling.
One of the things I read was there's noted similarities between this and Natural Born Killers, and I was like, oh, come on, dog.
Oh no, they are looking for the mom still, because he offered after they left his sister. He offered.
Yeah, like that whole thing. I like the idea that he just like showed up, and there's clearly like this contemptuous relationship with him and his sister, and he just kind of rushes out and kind of says like, you know, my mom's gonna try to come find us if we don't. And it's like, okay, I like that more than just, Mom, what are you doing here?
Yeah, I think that the real end game is going to be, you know, either her finding her mom and the mom rejects her, or just accepting that she's not going to find her mom. The worst thing that could happen is that she finds her mom and her mom just lays down like 10 minutes of exposition about you know what it was like when she was born, and like realized that her daughter,
the thorn from Halloween 6 is like explaining like you were a sacrifice.
Yeah,
I did text Julio for those of you who've seen this, and it's one of those, the expression when you see it, you can't unsee it. Trent Reznor does the score for this, and once you know that, you can't unhear it because he's got a very distinct style that he brings to these. So yeah, so far so good.
I'll tell you what I'm not crazy about, I guess, I don't really care for it being a love story. Maybe it will grow on me. Like you said, we have an hour. and it could be that I just become more invested in this relationship in the second half. But right now, I was just watching. I was like, it would be cooler if they were just two cannibals that
Mhm.
are just kind of like helping each other. I don't see why there's a need for it to be romance in it.
It's one of my favorite movies. Is people that listen to this at least once know is Almost Famous, and that's what makes that story so interesting. Is that William does love Penny, but she loves him in like a sisterly friend way, not in like the friend zone, but she's trying to like help him understand life and kind of move on with it. And that's kind of what I think here. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's yes, common logic would say that if these two young folks who have the same affliction or whatnot find each other, they're gonna fall in love. But it's like the more interesting story from my perspective, at least at this point, is like there are these two cannibals that found each other in the middle of nowhere, and
Mhm.
they should be more concerned and trying to help each other cope and whatnot. Yeah, since we don't know where the second hour is going to go, I think now is an important time to ask: did you eat a person, Julio?
I feel like we've touched on this
I think we
topic at
have.
some point. Wasn't it when we did the Snowpiercer episode? Because
Hmm,
we were discussing like which part of the body would be like the most.
that's right.
If you're gonna do it, you got to do it right.
It's supposed to be the ass, and I'm not saying that like in like fucking Christina Hendricks kind of way, but like that's the biggest muscle. And the stories of true cannibalism I've read, like the gluteus maximus muscle, is like I guess where people focus. But yeah, so yeah, Julio and I have talked about that. Like if you have the opportunity, someone's like, "Hey, you want to eat a person?" There's
Okay,
strings
not
attached.
that. No, I think my answer remains like if that's the only way that I'm gonna like stay alive
Yeah,
because I need to see my family again. You know,
but
then
not
yeah.
like in the way of like when I went to Canada, I wanted to eat horse. It was like it's on the menu, so I want to try it. If I went to, you know, Lithuania and it was like special of the day, berry from down the street. I'm not gonna, order a slice of that. But my thing is too is like obviously neither of us are vegetarians, but like the smell and taste of like human blood is so gross, and I only really know for myself. But it's like, um, I remember going to a deathmatch tournament that was like in a bar, and this like there was like this light tube death match, and the fucking place just reeked of iron by the end of it because these guys were like just so you've seen the wrestler, when he wrestles. There's probably Necro Butcher, the guy he wrestles in that movie, was one of them. Like you said, I know there are cannibals out there, and obviously history has shown that there's people in prison for the rest of their life because they ate people. Um, not for me, you know. Not to kink shame, but I don't think this is one of those things I'm down with.
I mean, it's not legal. So
Well, marijuana is not legal in Texas, and I don't judge people for that stuff.
I
So,
don't think it's legal anywhere, Alex. Cannibalism. I think that we're a long way from that. Hopefully,
what if
uh,
it was like Delaware was the one state that never signed the proper papers or whatnot? It's like, it slid under the rug.
it's like as long as it's consensual, you can eat another person.
Timothy Chalamet, he's British. Is that right?
Yeah, I think he's not American. I think I've heard him speak with a
You
different
sound like
accent.
an American there. He ain't American. French, American and French actor. All right. He's older than I thought he was. I thought he was like in his early 20s.
It's
For this being the
I was gonna say it's the Chalamet effect for me, where like I see him and then I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, he's a good actor. Like I never whenever somebody brings him up, I'm like, yeah, that guy. And then I watch a movie with him, I'm like, no, he's good. I just
yeah, he's
I don't know what is it that
the
make it do it.
introductory scene of him in this is fantastic, where he fucking falses that guy in the grocery store.
Hmm.
That guy though, like I'm wearing a PBR shirt too, and that guy comes around the corner like, what kind of grocery store is sold out of Lunchables? And he's just like drinking in public like a total degenerate. Um, yeah, so let's see. Promising beginning. I think you and I are both on the same page. There's some things they could choose to take this. There's several directions they could choose to take this that would be preferable to others. So I'm interested to
Um,
see where it goes.
Final questions. Do you think we see Mark Rylance or Michael Stolberg again? Or is that it? Was that chapter, the little chapters, and they're gone from the story?
in the fashion of classic road trip movies, that should be it. They should
Right.
just be the characters we encounter along the way.
I agree.
I would mark out huge if Mark Rylance shows back up and he's got that like braid tied to his, and he's just like Bianca Belair, like whipping it around and shit.
The worst thing that could happen, other than the mom showing up to dump exposition, is Michael Stolberg is chasing them and he's about to eat them, and then Mark Rylance shows up.
Oh, he comes up from behind him
Yes.
with the braid and then like
Just-
chokes him.
Yeah.
Yes, like Christopher Moltisanti and the Old Boy American remake that gets like. Ugh.
Well, hopefully that doesn't happen, but we'll find
We're
out.
just fantasy booking how this movie would like ruin it for both of us.
That way we have it there so that whatever happens in reality is going to be better than that, so we won't be disappointed. But we'll find out. We'll probably be back in an hour or so. I don't know if we're going to sit through the credits. It depends if they have animation or not, but I'm going to go watch the second half of Bones and All, and then we'll be back with our opinions, our ratings, and everything else.
Jake's teach me how to smell other eaters.
Go, 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 go.
Okay, here we are. We made it to the end of, as the end credits informed me, Luca Guadagnino's Bones and All. He took ownership of that, Alex. He decided he was gonna be John Carpenter or Nicholas Winding Refn. It was like, I'm gonna go with the apostrophe. I'm gonna do that. I wonder how the author of the novel feels about this. I mean,
No telling.
Maybe he changed the story a lot, and that's why he decided to put his name, just like the stamp of like, this is mine, not anybody else's.
I was gonna say they don't. Yeah, there wasn't enough money made here to be like, I don't care. Looks like the budget was between 16 and 20 million, box office of less than 15. But movies are weird now, so.
Okay, are you telling me that the very graphic love story between two cannibal monsters was not a mainstream hit?
It didn't pull in the Titanic numbers. I can't.
Wow, who'd have thunk it? Alex, the rule of three with Mark Rylance. He you mentioned his name. You call him out, and then he comes back, and then he comes back again.
It's like Beetlejuice.
Yeah, diminishing returns, or just what you wanted.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like everything we talked about, like being like, I don't want to see them do this, and the second half pretty much came to fruition.
It is certainly a weaker half. Like, I think that was a lot more into it. The first half, you kind of got this in my head. You called it Twilight with cannibals, and it just stuck there for the rest of the movie. I was like, damn it, he's right. So that didn't help. But
the difference being in Twilight, like they sparkle and it's obviously very fantastical, and so like the melodrama and some of like just the absurdity of the plot in that movie, it's a book written for 14-year-old girls. This, they're trying to like, I really like was getting annoyed in the second half here where they're trying to make them sympathetic, and it's like, yes, I understand like could all be metaphorical, and I'm gonna have a lot easier time if though you're portraying a character as being like addicted to drugs or something and struggling with that, me as a viewer having sympathy for that versus you fucking eating people and then trying to be like, my affliction is so tough, my life is hard. And again, I get it, this movie,
it's
I know
not
writers,
about cannibals.
Yeah, I know writers are subtle and they're cowards according to this movie, but it was just, when they were like crying and holding each other, but when he's telling the story about eating his dad, I'm just like, ugh, all right.
But his dad was also one of them, right? Like it wasn't just self-defense. Because at first I was gonna say, well, his dad was like a bad person, so it was kind of like self-defense. And then, I mean, he didn't have to eat him, obviously,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, it was implied that like he knew what was going to happen to him because like
yeah.
he had, and then of course the big Chloe Sevigny reveal. I was kind of like, oh my god, we're doing all this hype for Chloe Sevigny, but when it does reveal that she doesn't have either of her arms, I was like, ooh, and she's like,
practical Alex, or digitally erased?
she just said, take him. What's the director's name? Luca. Luca. We only get one shot at this.
I as soon as I started the movie again, I realized, I was like, man, we didn't talk about the arguably the protagonist of this story. Like we talked about Chalamet and Rylance and Stolberg
Taylor
and
Russell.
Taylor Russell, and then as I started watching the second half, I was like, I wonder if it's just because she didn't make that much of an impression.
Very what's Wednesday's name? Jenna Ortega.
Uh-huh.
Like the new thing where you're just dead, like you're dead
You just
behind the
don't
eyes.
emote.
Yeah.
It's a tough character, so I don't know how much of it is just the performance, how much of it is just that, well, it kind of sucks because she's surrounded by all the wacky people that get to do like really weird shit, like Mark Rylance and Michael Stolberg, and even, Chalamet, he's kind of like more out there, and she's supposed to be very level-headed in a way about everything, and so doesn't give her many places to go with her performance, I think, and so that really, I think that you need maybe an actress that could have done more with just such limited amount of where to go. You just need to have somebody that could just stand there and, for me, project a lot more emotion than what she does. She has some moments that are really good, like the second time that she confronts Rylance, I felt like it worked really well there. Her kind of not getting, no, he doesn't get a rise out of her. He loses his shit, calls her the C word. And I was waiting for him to spit on her almost.
Yeah.
And she just holds her own. And I think that it works then. Towards the end, I felt like I needed a little bit more.
I honestly think I was fired up like when that Jessica Harper, the lead from Suspiria, is the grandmother.
Okay, I figured because you called her out. I was like, okay, I did the math. I was like, okay, it has to be somebody that's.
It's not Timothée Chalamet. That scene was excellent. She showed up and was like, Jessica Harper's really good in that, as someone who's trying to be empathetic and sympathetic towards this little girl's situation, but also it's a situation that she's clearly like very troubled by and had issues with, and so I thought that was excellent. But then when she's like, did she ever hurt anyone, I was like, oh no. Are we gonna do this thing where it's like Hereditary, or the actual meaning, not the movie?
Right.
And then the letter, and she lunged at her at the end, and I was just kind of like,
that was the moment where I was like, this is dumb. So she knew that she was going to read the letter in front of her.
And she knew she was like Wayne's World style, like where they can't stop mouthing along, like
Right, she knew the exact moment.
Yeah, she knew like when she was watching her read the letter, and then and then she went out, and then they had the fucking Marriage Story argument on the lawn of that mental hospital there, and it was just like, at that point I was still like, okay, we could possibly get this back on track. And then Mark Rylance showed back up like 2 scenes later. I was like, I don't think we're getting back.
I don't mind the second appearance because he didn't come. Like, if he was just coming back to leave again, I'm like, okay, cool. She tells him off.
For him to be like the final boss in the end of this story is just so stupid.
I understand that they wanted to get to a point where, well, I don't know. I mean, I'd give the movie this. I've been, the end credits rolled, and I was like, why didn't I like this? So it made me think, because sometimes, I can tell you right away. And here I was like, there are things I like, there are things I didn't like. Why isn't this working? I have a feeling that the morality of it all, and this is something that kind of I found fascinating from the very beginning, right? That we have basically literal monsters as the people that we're following. Like, these are predators that, kill people and eat them. And so
specifically that old woman, and obviously this isn't exclusive to one Rob Zombie, but he does that in like Devil's Rejects, and I remember seeing specifically in Lords of Salem that thing of like, showing how depraved what's happening is. And what I mean by that is like his Halloween, someone will be getting like brutally killed, and then like you hear them dying while he's showing like the family pictures and stuff on the mantle. And that first old woman that gets eaten, like you're listening to her get eaten while it shows all these great memories from her life. And it's like, to your point, that's not just, Sully doing that. Like, our main character's part of that. And then so in the end, though, we're supposed to, maybe that's it. Like,
well, but that's the thing,
make...
right? Like, they couldn't have given them a happy ending. I guess that would have been too much. And so you have to contrive not to give them a happy ending.
5 movies.
So the easiest way to not give them a happy ending is to have tragedy fall on them, and the easiest way to break that tragedy is to grab the character that you already established as a weirdo that's potentially dangerous. And so it just I don't care. But
also, they live in an apartment. No one heard all this going on.
I mean, there is even an exterior shot, right? Like, they're in the middle of like killing Rylance, and there's an exterior shot where it was like, I guess it's soundproof. It's like nobody. But I think that I do like the idea of the, if this movie is about what makes you a monster and what can redeem you as a monster, and where's the line, right? And does love redeem you as a monster? I was like, it almost convinced me that it needed to be a love story, right? It's like, if the way that you get me to feel sympathy for these people is to show that, well, they love each other, and maybe that's what makes their existence something that we need to try to understand, right? It's like, yes, they have to eat people, but they're capable of love. And where do we draw? I don't know, there's like interesting stuff there. The movie doesn't really explore it. I think that ending is challenging, him dying and asking her to eat him, and it's like, if you step back, it's so silly. But if you're like, all right, Chalamet is really going for it, and the effects, Guadagnino is like holding the camera there so we can see her biting his chest. And I was
bones and all, he exclaims.
Yes. Somewhere Michael Stolberg goes like, yeah, I told you. I think that it's, I guess, not to sound too condescending, but it's a commendable effort in that sense of like, okay, well, at least they went all in the gore, and they committed to that part of it. I just think that the story mechanics are a little flimsy, how we get there.
Yeah. Like, this is one of those movies I watched and I could just hear my dad like cutting a promo on like halfway through, like, we're supposed to feel sorry for these fuckers, like that type of thing.
But did you feel sorry for them at some point? At any point? Not even her? Because that's the other thing, right? She resists. She's like, I'm not gonna kill anybody. And I really thought that we were gonna have her kill somebody. She does, but she kills somebody that's trying to kill her. So that's not that big of a deal, that she kills Mike Rylance.
It's obviously an issue she has, but like the whole thing is like, in the end, we've learned nothing because she's not trying to get better. Like, this is a story of like, even Twilight, we've been talking about it, like, of that's about like the eternal bond that love can bring, that Bella wants to be. I'm not trying to say like Twilight's some artistic achievement, but like, she's so in love with this person that she wants to give her life to his cause. And like with this, she doesn't want to be this way, I guess, but then doesn't really take any steps. She has like her rules, like she's Batman, that she's not going to kill anybody, but she'll feast. And then in the end, she eats her boyfriend, and then I guess on to the next one or whatever.
Right.
What did we learn, Palmer?
That's the thing. She makes a big stand after she meets her mom, and she says, I'm not going to be like her. And it's like, I'm not going to be a monster like her. I'm not going to put myself, in prison like her. But I'm also not going to be like you, Timothée Chalamet. And we're like, all right, so what are you going to be? And then we never find out, because then she goes back to him.
Yeah,
like,
and then that whole thing.
And then she's like, all right, can we be boyfriend and girlfriend again?
She watches him murder that guy that he's cranking off, and then like after the fact, he's like, how could you do that? And it's
because
then they find, yeah. What do they fucking think is gonna happen? Like,
but that doesn't, like, you think that would be a turning point, but it isn't, because
it is for 10 minutes because we have 2 hours to fill, but
Right.
and then
Is there a deleted scene where she makes Chalamet swear that he's not going to go for innocence again?
God, like I said, that whole scene where they're like crying and holding each other, regaling each other of their. I have sympathy for troubled upbringings and whatnot, and that's a good way for me to like kind of connect and bond with a character in a movie. Is understanding kind of how they came into this situation they're in. But again, the situation is eating people, and so it's like, I've already said this, but I'm probably gonna get shit for kink shaming here. But it's just kind of like that is so what you said, taking the words from you. If there are many moments specifically in the second hour of this movie that if you just kind of levitate above the situation just a little bit, you're going to see how fucking absurd what's happening is.
It would be a lot more powerful if Chalamet's father was not a drunk monster himself, because then if his big secret is that he had a bout of hunger and ate his dad, who was a perfectly nice person, then you understand.
A computer engineer at Apple Computers.
Got home from work early one day because he was gonna cook dinner. Chalamet ate him, and that's the big. And everybody thinks that the dad just skipped out on them, and that's his big secret. I was like, okay, I get it, but his big tragedy is like, oh well, this guy was about to kill me, so I stopped him, and then I ate him. It's gross, and it was probably uncalled for to go that far, but still, it's not the same.
Saving Silverman, when Arlie Ermey asks Steve Zahn and Jack Black how they killed Amanda Peet, and they're like, they didn't, and so they're just trying to lie to him, and they go, and Jack Black goes,
We ate her.
Arlie Ermey,
You ate her?
Alive.
Yeah, we ate her alive.
Arlie Ermey's like, my hat's off to you, boys. That's the perfect crime. Did you catch that apparently Sully ate Timothée Chalamet's sister because her blonde ponytail?
Hair is there? Yeah, I saw it. I was wondering if she was going to keep it from him, and
didn't really have much of a choice. She ended up eating him anyway. So
yeah, but well, he noticed. That's because at first that was like there was so much going on there. I thought he had gotten stabbed in the middle of the fight, but then he wasn't acting like he was stabbed until
he did like the badass, like powered through it.
Yeah. And
he did the Arnold, don't do that.
Yeah, when he said, oh, he ate her, I was like, oh, well, I guess that's it. I guess he figured it out. It doesn't make much of a difference, which is a shame because it's such a horrible thing, right? Like, or did you get the sense that he gave up because he saw that his sister was dead?
I just thought he was stabbed.
That would
have made more sense. I don't know. Sense is kind of relative here, but like, I mean, he was going to kill Sully either way because he was assaulting his girlfriend, but yeah.
Now, if Marin had eaten the sister, now you're talking, right? Like she loses control, eats the sister, and now Chalamet has to. But then that goes against the idea of, I think, if this movie's trying to humanize and try to make sympathetic people that have this condition, then that's probably going
real
too far.
People eat people too, guys.
It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor for whatever it is that's ailing you. I agree with what the movie's trying to say, or what I think the movie's trying to say. I just wish that the story was stronger.
Yeah, I mean, we joke about this all the time. I can understand the movie and then still like want it to be better. Yeah.
Call Me by Your Name is better.
Okay.
But there's no supernatural elements there. It's just...
Who's the other gentleman in that?
Disgraced actor, Armie Hammer.
Speaking of cannibals.
Yes, Jesus Christ. Luca Guadagnino took this project to drum up sympathy for Armie. Is that what you're saying?
I do want to see that. I meant to. It's been several years now since it got all that buzz, but yeah, I'm never. I mean, never's intense. I don't ever plan on watching the Luca Suspiria, but I would like
you can
to
watch the original Suspiria twice back to back.
Yep. Honestly, until the end, when Sully showed back up and I was annoyed and wanted the movie to be over, I didn't really feel the runtime. some really tremendous cinematography. Some of the way there's a couple like throwaway framings that are fantastic. There's one that's like a shot of like it's just a quick panning from like a shitty downtown area somewhere to Timothy Chalamet in the truck. I think he might be sleeping or something, but a couple really like impressive shots throughout it that really don't celebrate themselves. And it's just, I got checked out at a certain point, and then it just made me hyper aware of how absurd the story is, and really enjoyed the first hour. I guess you would say the first half. I thought the first half kind of set the table for a far more interesting meal than we ended up getting, no pun intended. Acting was pretty solid. I mean, obviously this is kind of just a twofer as far as leads go, but like I said, that part with Jessica Harper I really liked. Michael Stuhlbarg was good. Chloe Sevigny, jesting aside, didn't really get an opportunity to do much.
She sat there.
We got the POV shot of Chloe Sevigny tries to eat you.
Where is that? I'm sure that meme is somewhere, or it would have been if the movie had been a bigger hit.
POV, Chloe Sevigny tries to eat you. Nothing's worse than getting excited halfway through a movie and then it just kind of shits the bed. At least in one's estimation, it does. One's opinion, I should say. So that kind of stunk because I was really enjoying when we met halfway through, and then
it happens. It happens.
Yeah. Disappointed would be too extreme of a term, but I was just like, well, I guess
bummed.
This is it. Bummed. There you go.
Yeah, I had a feeling that we were in trouble early on when on the second half when we got to the mom right away, like almost like as soon as it started the second hour. It's like, so what are we gonna do next? Because that was the whole point. It was like we were going to see the mom, and then we see the mom, and there's still like 40 minutes of movie left. So yeah, I don't. It's not even that it makes me want to read the book to see what got lost in translation, because I was like, I kind of get it. I think I get it. It's fine. I'm glad that there was a skilled director behind it. To the point that like you say, it made it was easy on the eyes. Like the performances were good. Everything is just that in the end, the script was not there. I think that's my main criticism. I wanted to give it 3 stars just for ideas in general, but really that final 10 minutes or whatever it is, it's just so formulaic and so ridiculous what they do with the Mark Rylance character. So I'm down to 2.5 stars. That's my final score.
I did want to look it up to confirm it. The book was a young adult book. Meant for ages 14 to 19. Well, I mean, that's the range, anyone.
Oh, I know, I get it. I got those vibes. It's the Twilight thing, and I didn't want to like verbalize it because I didn't want to sound so prejudiced. But really, when I say that you put Twilight in my head, what I really meant is that you put YA in my head. And I was like, yeah, this seems like one of those love stories that you see in the YA section, and not to demean those because those can be really powerful and everything, but there is a formula and there is some beats that they can hit, and there's just a vibe that maybe was not the best for like a cannibal movie.
That was Then, This Is Now is a YA that I read in 8th grade, and it was one of the more memorable books I've ever read. So those things have their place. Attempting to make like an art house movie out of the source material, though, can offer some challenges, I guess we'll say. And we saw those here. I think 3 stars is probably what I'll end up giving it on Letterboxd. This is just kind of a dead center C. There's some things about it that, so it might even be 2.5. There's some things about it, both narratively and from a filmmaking perspective, that are very impressive. But then in the end, it just kind of is like, you have like a ginger ale and you're really excited about it, and the first 2 sips are really good, and you leave it sit for like 10 minutes. That's it. And then you go back to it and it's just completely flat. And it's like, all right.
I guess like Mark Rylance. Just like, oh God.
Drooling on you. Ooh.
He went for it. He
did. Everyone in this was, they understood the assignment, as the kids say, and went for it. So, do we know Jamie's feelings on it?
We don't. Let's do a little bit of sleuthing and see if Jamie has at least given it a rating on Letterboxd. I'm assuming he likes it, but I mean, you never know. Oh God! All right, found Jamie Russell's letterbox score. No review, but 5 stars and a heart.
Oh,
Jamie, do you eat people? Is that were you able to really connect to the story? I look forward to Jamie's comments
Yeah.
and just tell us what we're missing, what we didn't get, where we're wrong.
And did the pro wrestling clip that Chalamet is watching have
Yes,
anything
was
to do
that
with
really
this?
the reason that we got this assignment?
Yeah.
That's also something. Well, 2.5. I see, not a great outcome, but also we've watched much worse. And
Oh yeah, and this is definitely a movie we'll come back to again in terms
yes,
of like,
that's another one that will be
yeah.
in just a point of reference. I would say also that, Alex, maybe we're just not the audience.
No,
We are not young adults. And this was based on a young adult novel, so maybe that just connects. It's easier for people in their late teens, early
he's gonna
20s.
go all in and just say, yeah, this movie's not for us because we like good movies.
Anyway, I mean, I didn't look up the Rotten Tomatoes. So let's close with that.
81%.
81. Okay, so I mean, we're just really honoring our name here. We are very much against that Rotten Tomatoes score, which is fine. We do that from time to time. Anybody else watching this? Feel free to
82.
let us know.
Sorry, an 82% with the certified fresh IP.
Of course, it's a Luca
But
Guadagnino movie.
the audience score is 62%, so we're a little bit closer to that.
Those old fucks that went to watch it and are like, "What is this?"
For real.
All right. Well, let us know what you think. Be nice, but let's talk about our disagreements here. And I wish I could tell you what the next dual QVR is, but I don't have the pick yet. We have 3 more that we're supposed to do in this series, so we'll let you know. But thank you for watching this video. Keep an eye out for the next one, and thank you for checking the podcast as well, because I'm sure you're all doing that. Jamie, thank you for the pick, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Like, subscribe, leave a comment, do all that
Do
shit.
the thumbs up, all that stuff.
There you go. Thank you.